Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Stitch Sessions. This week we have a super cute, really easy tutorial for you on how to make this really sweet ear warmer. And since Valentine's Day is just on our doorstep, I thought we'd add this sweet little applique of hearts. And we'll also have a little mini tutorial link to that in the description box down below of this video. And remember, if you have any questions, you can always pop us a comment in the comment box or just email us directly. And all of that info is in the description box down below. But I know you are dying to get started on this thing, so let's grab our materials and let's get stitching. Okay, so let's get started on our ear warmer. So what you're going to need for this project is a pair of scissors, a darning needle, and some yarn. Now I'm using this really super soft, the Red Heart Amore, and it's just lovely. I can't say enough about the feel of it, the texture. This is going to be a perfect type of yarn for an ear warmer. It is 100% polyester and it is machine washable and dryable. So this is, again, really fantastic for working on things like ear warmers, mittens, scarves, hats, that kind of thing. So I'm super excited about using it. So I have a little bit of pink here for my embellishment, and I'm going to do it in this light gray color. So you can make this with or without the applique. So I'm just going to take this one out of the way and I'm going to get started here with the light gray. Now this calls for using a 5.5 millimeter hook, and that is exactly what I'm going to use here today. Now the thing to keep in mind is the way I'm going to do this is that I am going to hold two strands together. So you can see I've taken out the middle section and I've kind of gotten one of the strands ready. And so I'm going to use the inside and the outside end as I go along. And the reason why I'm doing this is considered a medium 4, but it's quite, I would consider this quite fine, quite thin. And so just to make it a little bit extra cozy, I'm going to use two strands together in this particular project. And I'm going to go ahead and still use the 5.5 millimeter hook. Some people would go up a hook size, like to a 6. But because I would like to keep my stitches fairly, not tight, but fairly cozy to each other because it's an ear warmer, I'd like it to be as cozy as possible. I am going to keep it to the 5.5 millimeter hook so that the stitches sit a little bit closer together. So here we go. I'm taking my two ends here. So I'm just going to take the label off here so I can work with it. And you can do it this way, or you can just get two completely different balls of yarn. This whole ball is 100 grams. You will not need 100 grams for your ear warmer. I doubt you would even need 50. I would say maybe about 30 grams or so. Okay, so we're going to work in the round here. And what you're going to need to know is you're going to need to know the circumference of the size of the head that you're going to be working on. So I'm making this using my head size as an example. Okay, so my circumference is 22 inches. So I'm going to start with a foundation chain row that's going to take me up to 21 inches. Now I'm doing that because these things tend to have a lot of give and they're going to stretch a little bit. So I'd like it to sit snug to my head. So if I made it to 22 inches, it does stretch. So I'm going to go on a limb and take off an inch and chain my length up to 21 inches. So we're going to start with a slip knot. And I'm keeping two yarns at one time. two working yarns. So I'm going to start with just chain stitches. So again, just yarn over and pull through. And like I said before, I'm going to keep mine fairly snug, although I don't want to be tight on the foundation chain row because that will then make the project scrunch in. So you still want to be relaxed here as you do your foundation chain. And for this particular row, you may actually want to do a 6mm hook so that your first chain row is not too tight, which a lot of people do, and it's a great idea. But I have honed the skill of just keeping my first chain row relaxed. Okay, so go ahead and chain up to the amount of chains you will need for however many inches that you need to go around the circumference of your head. And I will meet you once you've got your initial chain rows done. Okay, so I have chained 75 chains. And in fact, this only measures out to 20 inches or 51 centimeters. Because what I did is, as I chained, I also kept wrapping it around my head to make sure that it felt okay. And I could see that at 75 chains, I could meet them together, but they were already starting to feel a bit loose. So again, this will stretch, so it's probably better off that you keep them more snug than anything else. So I have 75 chains in my foundation chain row. Okay, this is the beautiful thing about this project, is anyone can customize it to whatever length they need. So if you notice here, I've turned this over and you can see these back bumps here. Okay, so that's actually what we're going to work into. Most of the time people will work right into the V's here to start, but because this project is going to be joined eventually, I want to make sure that our end here is quite nice and finessed and tidy. So this just gives it a neater, a more finessed finish. Okay, once I have my 75 stitches, I am going to chain an additional 2, 1, 2, because we're going to be using the half double crochet stitches, and 2 is the height that we need to create the to represent 1. So once you've chained an additional 2, you're then going to find the 4th chain from the hook. So you're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, you never count this loop. And instead of going into the front, we're going to turn it over and find the back bump. Okay, so it's right there. So we want to yarn over and then insert our hook into that back bump. And it might take a little bit of help there. And remember, you're using 2 yarns, so you don't want to split them. You're going to insert your hook. When you turn it over, you should see the V's nicely on the front. Okay, then you'll yarn over, pull through. That's going to give you 3 loops on the hook. Remember, you've got 2 yarns on the go. And then you'll then you'll yarn over and pull through all 3. Okay, so there you've created your half double crochet. And remember, this one counts as 1 on the end here. So that'll maintain your stitch count. And you can see that on the bottom, it's going to create this nice finished ridge. So here we go. We're going to do it again. So you'll yarn over and go to the next back bump. So remember, working into the back bumps. So it's that one right there. And you'll just help the hook go through there. Yarn over and pull through. 3 loops, yarn over, pull through all 3. So there we have 2 half double crochets. And so the half doubles sit a little bit chunkier, and that's why I like using them. So they sit closer together and a little fatter there. So it'll make for a nice cozy ear warmer. Okay, again, let's do this. So yarn over, find the next back bump, and remember, try not to skip this one, right? So you really want to pay attention. This is the next back bump, and you are going to have to help your hook through in there. And because I'm working with 2 yarns, I really try to be conscientious of making sure that at all times these 2 are staying together. Okay, there's the next half double. So yarn over, find the back bump, and help the hook through. Yarn over, pull through. 3 loops will be on your hook. Yarn over, pull through all 3. Okay, and I'll do that again. And this is basically the stitch that we are going to use throughout this whole project. So it's very beginner friendly for sure. Okay, so there we go. So you can see at the top the V's are creating for these stitches, but then look at the bottom. See how nicely that looks finished off? So that's what we're aiming for here. So row 1 is going to be all half double crochets. So go ahead and do that, and I'm going to meet you at the end of the row, and we're going to talk about what's going to happen next. Okay, I'm coming up to my last stitch here, the last bump. So make sure not to miss this one. This bump here is a stitch we have to work into. So you're just going to make sure that you help your hook along. Insert. And this is our 75th stitch in our foundation row, or our row 1 actually. So if you're ever unsure, make sure to count your stitches, and remember that this chain 2 we had here, that counts as one of your half double crochet stitches. So you can see, like I said before, the stitch sits nicely cozy with each other. And because I've used 2 strands, it's giving it this nice chunky feel, and it's so nice and soft. Okay, so I have my 75. Now, a lot of times people will join, or they would have joined in the chain foundation row to work in the round. I am not going to keep it in the round. We are going to work it in rows right now because of the technique of the bunching I want to do at the end. We're going to work it by rows. So you've reached the end, and now what you want to do is you want to chain 2, and then you're going to turn your work. Now you can see the other beauty of working with half double crochets is it leaves this kind of double V effect. So you've got your V's, which is your actual stitch tops right there. And then you've got the V's that are created on the side here. So what we are going to do is we are going to work into these side V's. So these are considered the bottom of the back loops. So the front of the stitch is here. This is the back of the stitch. So the loops of the stitch are up top, and if I was facing this way, this would be the front loop, and this would be the back loop here. So the front of the V and the back of the V. And here, that is the bottom of the V. So when we turn around, we are going to be working into the bottom of the V here, okay? And that's going to create a really cool effect that I'm going to show you in a second. So once you've done your 75 half double crochets, you've come to the end, we're going to chain 2, and we're going to turn our work. So what we're going to do is we want to accentuate these side V's here. So for this project, we're going to be working into the back loops for this row. So we're going to yarn over, and we are going to go into the second back loop. So remember, this is the base of your first, considered to be the base of your first half double crochet. So we're not going to work into that one. We're going to work into the back loop of this next stitch here. And I'm going to pull through, and I'm working a half double crochet as usual. I'll yarn over and pull through. So this chain 2 counts as a half double, and this is the next half double crochet. And so that's what we're going to do into each and every single stitch going across for row 2. So I'm going to do a few more. We're going to yarn over, insert our hook into the back loop. So that means we have to insert our hook into the top of the stitch and not underneath as we usually would. So into the back loop, and make sure to catch that full stitch there, that full loop. Yarn over, pull through 3 loops, yarn over, pull through all 3. Okay, half double. So I'll do that again. Yarn over, insert into the back loop, pull through, and resolve the half double. I'm going to do a couple more because there's a reason why I am doing this in this particular pattern. Let's see if I can do one more here. Okay, so there we go. So by working into the back loops of this stitch, you see it pushes these V's forward and accentuates them. So it kind of gives it this really neat little, it looks like a knit stitch actually, if you can see that. So we want to create this really neat V-stitch ridge here. So for this is row 2. So for row 2, you're going to be working into the back loops only. So go ahead and do that, a half double crochet into each and every single stitch into the back loops only until you get to the very end. And then I'm going to take you through row 3, and then it's going to just simply repeat row 2 and row 3. Okay, so go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you there. Okay, so I'm coming up to the end of round 2, and I just wanted to show you guys, this is your chain 2 here. We're going to go into the back loop of that, and I've already just kind of stretched that out a little bit so that the effect remains the same and that our stitch count remains the same. So you see it goes right to the end, and now you can really see how neat that knit effect is taking place. So now we're on to row 3. We're going to chain 2, and we're going to turn our work. So in this particular project, I want one side to be the front side, and that's this one here with the stitches that are pushed out forward. So now that I've turned my work, I want to make sure that that effect stays consistent. So this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work into the bottom loops of this stitch. So remember, these are the top 2, and this is that side V effect that the half double crochet stitch creates. So I'm going to work into the bottom loop so that it pushes the top 2 loops out. That will create a similar effect to the previous row. So row 3 is working into the bottom loops. So we're going to yarn over, and remember, this one is the base of your chain 2, which is considered a half double crochet. So we go into the next one, and we're going to find the bottom. So that's the back loop. This is the front loop. So we're going to go into the bottom loop here. So into our second stitch. I'm going to push through, yarn over, and pull through. And you work it like a regular half double crochet. Okay, so we're going to do that a few more times. Yarn over, find the bottom loop, not to be confused with the top loops here. This is where it might get a little bit funny. So these are the top loops, these are the side and the bottom. So we're looking for the bottom, insert our hook and push through there, yarn over, and pull through all 3. Okay, again, bottom loop, so you don't want to go through the whole thing. That would be the whole stitch. We just want the bottom loop, yarn over, and resolve like a regular half double crochet. So this whole project is pretty much all half double crochets. The other thing I love about this yarn is it just glides so nicely across my hook. Just nice slide, so smooth. Okay, let's have a look now, the effect. So I'm going to turn this over, and there you go. So you can see it's creating this nice ridge here. The stitch is tighter because what we're pushing forward are the top loops of your stitch. So row 3 will have a slightly tighter knit stitch look. Row 2, we pushed forward the side loops. So that's why that knit stitch looks a little thicker, but it creates such a cool effect. So what we're going to do is we're going to finish row 3, then we're going to go back and repeat row 2 and row 3. So go ahead and finish the rest of your row 3, which is the bottom loops. Then you're going to repeat row 2, which are your back loops coming in through the top of the stitch. And then you'll repeat row 3 one more time, which is this one here. We're working into the bottom of the stitch, or the bottom of the loops, I should say. But keep in mind that your stitch count should remain the same the whole way through. So in my case, I started with 75 stitches and I still have 75 stitches. Okay guys, I have come to the end of my 11th row. So when I was working this out and I repeated row 2 and 3, I found that this seemed a little bit narrow. So I added several more rows. So this will cover the ear nicely and kind of snuggle well around the head. So in total, I repeated row 2 and 3 5 more times. So including the first row of half double crochets, this will give you a total of 11 rows, which for me, I found was a good thickness. It may be a little different for you, and that is, like I said before, the beauty of this project. You can adjust it to however you like. So I've come to the end here, and so what I want to do now is we are going to get ready to join our ends together. And I'm going to show you the reason why I did not work in the round, because I wanted to pinch a little bit in at the seams. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain 1, and we're not going to turn our work. We're now going to work down the side here. So we are going to insert 1 single crochet into the end of each row. Now, usually we would put 1 single crochet into the sides of single crochets. Half double crochets, sometimes we have to work 1 or every second one because the height is kind of an in-between height. If we were doing a double crochet, the standard would be to put 2 singles into the side of each double crochet to even it out. But I'm just going to do 1 in the side of each, and I purposely am doing that because I do want it to slightly bunch in, because that's the look I'm going for. So after I've chained 1, I'm going to find the end of my next row. So I'm not going to go into this one. I'm going to go into where this stitch is popping out here. And I don't necessarily want to go into that big gap that's already there because I don't want gaps there. So I'm actually going to go right into the side of the stitch there, and I'm just going to single crochet. So you can see how that's already coming inward a bit. So I'm going to go into the top of my next side. So what I'm doing is I'm just basically looking where all those V stitches are popping forward, and I'm going to use that as my guide. So this is the top of my next set of V's popping forward, and I'm going to single crochet there And my next one is going to be this. Oh, yeah, it does go through. Perfect. Right there. And then the top of my next set of V's is right here, single crochet. So when we single, we're just simply inserting right away, yarning over, pulling through. So you'll only have 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, and pull through both. Okay. So yeah, you can definitely see that it's nicely kind of bunching in. So I'm going to continue to do that all the way to the end. And I should end up having 11 stitches by the end of it. And these can get a little funny because see how these spaces are created? So I'm going to go in through here, single crochet, and at the very end I'm going to go into the end stitch here, insert, that's the top of my chain beginning. And there you have it. So when I pull it out, you can definitely see that it's starting to gather here, which is perfect. That's exactly what I want. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Perfect. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to snip my yarn here because I need to go to the other side and do the same thing before I actually sew these 2 ends together. So I'm just going to pull through and fasten off. I can weave my end in afterwards. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the other side, and remember, for me I've determined that this is going to be the right side, or the side that faces out, so you can see all these nice beautiful knit looking stitches that are popping out. On the back it's just a ridge. Okay, so it's much different, so you don't see the V's like you do in the front. Choice is up to you, but I'm choosing to have this one facing the front. So I am going to start with a new piece of yarn, or as usual, my 2 held together. I'm going to start with a slip knot, and I'm going to insert into the top of my first row here, which would be this one right here, and I'm going to slip stitch to join. And what I'm going to try and do is I am going to try and work over both of these tails here as I go. Let's see how it works. So I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to move into the very next row, or the set of V's like I used to get, just like I used to help guide me before. So this is my next, the top of my next one. So I'm going to insert here, and I want to try and grab a substantial amount. Whoops. I don't want to pull my tails through. So I'm going to hold them down, insert, and pull through. So there we go. I'm going to find my next one, which is right there, the top of my next V row. This one will probably be a little bulky because you've got your ends you're trying to sew in, so don't worry, it just takes a little bit of patience. This is the top of the next one. And my next ridge row is here. So let's see. There we go. So sometimes when you're working into the sides of stitches, you just have to do your best to find a good spot. It doesn't always work out as easily as we'd like, but all you can do is your best. Okay, the top of my next one I think I'll put in there. And there we go. I don't like that one. I think I will go in here just to give it a little bit more fortification. And this is the top of my next one. And my next one is here. And this is my last one, which will be a chain 2 stitch. Whoops. And there you have it. So it just kind of finishes it off the ends, and it's pinched in a little bit. So hopefully now, let me just get that out of the way. You can kind of tell the effect I'm going for, just to pinch it in a little bit. So here though, I am going to do another row. So I want to make sure, I'll just snip that end out afterwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Perfecto. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work, and I'm going to just snuggle this in a little bit more. I am going to single crochet into, I'm going to skip this first one here, I'm going to single crochet into the next one. I'm going to single crochet into the next one, and now I'm going to do a decrease stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook, pull through, but I'm not going to resolve it. I'm going to go to the next stitch, pull through, 3 loops. Now I'm going to yarn over and pull through all 3. So what that's done is it's brought these 2 stitches snugly together. And I'm going to do that one more time. So I'm going to single crochet into the next one, single crochet into the next one. So we've done 2, and now we're going to decrease the next 2. So we're going to insert our hook and pull through. We're not going to resolve that stitch. We're going to insert into the next stitch to pull through, which will give you 3 loops on your hook. And now you're going to yarn over and pull through both of them. So you can see that kind of bunches them in a little bit cozier. And then we're going to do 1 single crochet in the next one, and finally a single crochet where our chain 1 was from the previous row. Okay, so you can really see it has bunched in now, and we've decreased from 11 stitches to 9. And so I'm going to leave this here now. And so essentially what we're going to do is we're now going to stitch these 2 sides together, and as you can see, it kind of just creates a little bit of a bunch in to the center, which is the look that I'm going for. Now I am going to show you how to bring these 2 sides together using the slip stitch method, because I actually want to show a ridge here. And this is great for if you're leaving the ear warmer as is, just nice and plain. I will be adding a little applique on top, and I have a link in the description box down below for that tutorial on how to do that applique. But I'm going to show you how I'm going to stitch these 2 sides up, and then I'll show you how I would apply the applique. Okay, so, and I know you're thinking, but this side has 9 stitches, this side has 11. Not to worry. It's all part of the plan. Now you can certainly have made it completely even by having a second row here on the side and done a decrease as well. I've chosen to have a decrease only on one side because I wanted to show that there's a center row, if you will. It's just simply personal preference, so it's completely up to you. So what we're going to do is we are going to take the wrong side and we are going to bring the ends or the edges of the wrong sides together. So for me, I want the stitches, the V's that are pushed out forward to be on the outside. So I just made sure that they are facing out. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert my hook, and I am going to find the first stitch and I'm going to skip it, because remember, this side has 11 stitches, this side only has 9. So I'm going to skip this side. I'm going to start right away in this stitch here, and whoops, got to make sure my working yarn is out of the way. So I'll insert there. Okay. And I'm just going to slip stitch these two together. And there you go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the very next stitch, which here it's this one, because remember this belongs to that initial slip stitch. So we're going to go here, and we're just going to go in the very next stitch of the corresponding side. Pull through and pull through all the way. Okay? And we're going to do that all the way across now. So every stitch that matches up, so that one has been worked into already, we're going to insert, whoops, just get my tail out of the way there, sew that in after, pull through and through to slip stitch. And the next one, insert into the corresponding stitches and slip stitch. Okay, and again, so this is the same all the way to the end. And now I'm coming back to the last stitch. So this is my 9th stitch. And so this will be the chain 1 here. So I'll find a spot that I can insert it into. Make sure I have enough give. And then the chain 1 of this one is, which is right there. Actually, I'm sorry, that's an actual stitch because the chain 1 is over here. Remember, there's an extra stitch on each side of that other spot. Okay, so you can see that that creates a ridge, a raised ridge there, and now you can really see the effect of it coming closer in. Now, you can do more rows than I did. You can actually do 2 rows on each side with the second row decreasing, and then do a 3rd row on each side and decrease again to really bring it in. I didn't want to go too crazy, so I just did 2 rows. But again, you can do what you like. So I left a little bit of a tail. I'm just going to fasten off now. And the reason why I left a little bit of an extra long tail is that there's just a little bit of a kind of a disjointed gap there. So these tails are great for just sealing up that little gap so that you can see it really dips up as opposed to just leaving it gaping open. So you want to just take your yarn needle and sew this end in, and what I would do is actually come back up to this stitch right here, which was the first stitch you went into, and you can tell it'll just snug it in nicely but still give it that neat little curving up. And that's the same thing I'm going to do with this one here, and just kind of bring these two just a little bit more snugly together, but still leaving that really neat little curve going up. So there you have it, nice and easy. So see, now you can really see from the side. This is a fantastic easy project, didn't take me long, and because I used 2 yarns together with this beautiful Amore yarn, it's really soft and cozy. So go ahead and sew in your ends, and then we're going to talk about how you can add an applique. All right, so we're ready to sew on our little heart-shaped appliques. And again, the link for how to make these little hearts is in the description box down below. And I made 2 different types of hearts out of different types of yarn, sorry. So I started off with this really super soft Amore yarn, which I love, love, love the feel of. But what I've noticed is it's not a great yarn for making appliques because it just doesn't seem to hold its shape as nicely as like an acrylic yarn. So these were done using the same amount of stitches, same technique, but you can see the one with the acrylic yarn just sits nicer and holds its shape a little better. So I would say the Amore yarn is great for the feel and things like hats and ear warmers and things like that. But if you want to use it for appliques, I probably would recommend you going to the acrylic. So I just did 2 tones of pink, and I still think it's going to look nice. So I've decided to place my hearts on either side of my seam because in this project I want the seam to be the obvious thing. So this is what I would actually have sitting on the top of my head to show it off. And then I'm going to place my 2 little hearts just like that, and it'll just give it kind of a neat little effect there. So I'm just going to show you how I'm going to sew mine in. So I actually cut the tails. So normally what I would do is I would leave an extra long tail to sew it in, but since the tails kind of felt somewhere in the middle anyway, I just decided I would start from scratch. So I'm going to start with the piece of acrylic yarn here, and I'm going to thread my needle. Okay, and so I'm going to find the spot that I want to sit in. Now some of you may want to pin it down first so that it stays secure, but I just don't kind of roll that way. So I feel pretty confident that I can hold on to it and sew it in place. So I am going to start, actually I'll start with the point here of the heart. So what you want to do is you want to find and pick up a stitch on the project you're sewing on to. So I'm picking up a couple loops here, and then I'm going to pick up a stitch in the applique. Okay, so I just found a couple of loops there. I'm going to pull my yarn through, and this is actually an extra piece of the same yarn I had lying around, so that's why it's super long, but you probably wouldn't need one this long. So I'm going to leave a little tail at the end there, and in fact what I'll do is I'm actually going to knot it once to secure, and then this little tail will get tucked in underneath, which is actually, might as well do that now. Okay, so now you're going to continue to pick up loops. So you're going to pick up a loop from the work you're sewing on to, and then you're going to pick up a loop that you're sewing from the applique. So because there's many different ways of doing this. So you can pick up this loop here, but I think I'm going to go right up into the inside, the full inside of the stitch, because I want to stay on the inside of the applique. And the reason why I want to do that is because I really want the outside edge, the shaping here, to stay intact. And a lot of times if you're only picking up the back loop, for example, sometimes it can lose its shape depending on your tension. So in this case, I am going to go into both loops. So now I'm on the inside of the applique. So the way I'm going to sew this one is I'm going to go back out into the next stitch under both. Oops, let me catch this next one here. There we go. Under both loops. So it'll just create a little extra ridge there. Okay, and now I'm going to find, actually this loop works out great underneath here, and then I'm going to make sure it comes through the applique there. So I'm just pulling that through, and you don't want to pull too tight. You want it to be snug, but you don't want it to be too tight there. Okay, and don't worry too much about that, because as it sits on your work, it'll just get nicely hidden there as the rest of your work gets put more securely into place. So I'm just picking up another loop underneath and pulling through, a little bit snug. Okay, and now I'm going to find another loop through here and come up through the top. Okay, so you can see, in fact, it's kind of bringing this ridge out a bit more, which I like for myself. It's always dependent on what your aesthetic preference is, okay? So I'm going to do on the inside edge here, okay? So go ahead and continue. You'll go all the way around. So next, I'm going to go into the next loop. And I try and find a loop right underneath. I don't want to go too far out here because then my sewing stitches will be a little bit extra visible, and I am trying to keep them somewhat snuggled in among these stitches. There we go. Okay, so go ahead and I'll meet you at the end when we're fastening off and tucking in our ends. Alrighty, and I'm coming up to the end of my little heart shape here, just sewing in the last couple of stitches here into my project. And this is definitely, whoops, definitely very secure. So see, all the edges are in. Yeah, I really like how that came out, going on the inside edge. So I'm just coming up near the end here, so I'm just going to grab my last loop here, pull through, and then I'm going to just meet up where I made that first little knot here, just so that it looks uniform. It's come full circle together, and just to kind of give it its own self-knotted feel. Self-knotted, is that even a word? I make up strange words sometimes, but I think you know what I mean. So it's kind of knotting into itself. There we go. It also kind of adds a little bit to the point. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I am going to feed this in through here. Oops. So that I can hide the end. Okay. And then I'm going to just gently, I don't want to pull out any of my stitches, and I'm pulling it snug. There we go. So it's just going to blend nicely in there. And it's also another way to secure my little tail here, just to kind of hide it among these center stitches here as well. Careful not to pull up these stitches, because then the whole look of your heart will start to be compromised. And then maybe one more. And I'm actually going to try, that's perfect. I want it to come up through the center. And that is where I'm going to snip my yarn. And it should be fairly secure in place. And there you have it. Wow, that came out super cute. I'm really happy about that. And that's it. So you've got your nice, cozy, snug, very soft and warm ear warmer. And we've added a little embellishment. And I'm going to let you go ahead and do your next heart. If you're doing two, maybe you're only going to do one. Maybe you're going to do 3 or 4. Totally up to you. But this is how mine turned out, and I'm really, really happy with it. And I can't wait to put it on. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. And if you have any questions, you know you can always leave us a comment in the comment box down below, or you can email us directly at info@crochetcrafty.com. In the meantime, if you like our tutorials and want to stay up to date, make sure you click subscribe, tell your friends. We're happy to share our craft and our love of crochet. And we look forward to seeing you in the next stitch session. Happy crocheting, everyone. Take care. And I'm back. I actually decided to put a little border around here just to kind of tie in the 2 hearts, and I was just fiddling with it and I thought I really like that. So guys, if you want to add just a little extra something on top of your appliques, you can certainly put a different colored border just to give your ear warmer a little finishing off edge. but absolutely not necessary. But I just started playing with it, and this is what I came up with. So since my heart colors were two different tones of pink, I decided to start one side of the border in the dark pink to correspond, and then the other side in the light pink. So it's just basically single crochets. In this one I did 2 single crochets into every stitch, and then when I got to the center I just joined in my light colored yarn and continued on. So I'm just going to show you real quick kind of the stitches, how they are worked in, if you're not familiar with the single crochet stitch. So I'm going to keep going around till the center back here, and then I will rejoin with my my darker pink. So here I go. So I'm simply just doing 1 single crochet into the top of every stitch all the way around. So I'm just going to insert my hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Typical single crochet stitch. 1 into each and every single stitch until I get roughly to the middle part of my back side of my ear warmer. So I'm just picking up a few stitches here, and again, insert first, yarn over to pull through, 2 loops will be on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2. And for this one, for the border, I decided to go with a 5mm hook just to make it a little bit snugger around the border. So I'm going to meet you back when I get to this little center piece here, just to show you how I would integrate the new color. Okay, so I'm just checking out where my center is here, and I'm pretty happy with where I'm at right here. Now, normally you wouldn't have started here, but it was just because I was experimenting. Normally I would have recommended starting with the first color right in the center, going all the way around, then joining, and then coming back with the new color. But hey, that's me. I'm always fiddling with things, and then I get excited and I want to show it to you. So this is kind of not what you should do. I was just fiddling around. But anyway, it's done. So I'm going to show you how you would join in your new color. And I really like how that's actually turning out. That came out really, really nice. Super cute. Okay, so I'm turning around here, and I'm going to bring back in the dark color. And I am actually going to begin, oh, actually, you know what I should do? I'm going to take this one out because I want to begin to do a single crochet. So I'll insert and pull through, but I won't resolve it with the same color. This is where I'll introduce my new color. And for the border, I'm only using 1 strand, if you'll notice, of the Super Saver, the Amore yarn. And now I'm going to use that strand to resolve this stitch. I'm just going to pull it a little snug. Okay. And then I will go into the next stitch and continue as usual. But because this is a slightly finer yarn than the previous, the acrylic, I'm going to do 2 single crochets into that same stitch. Okay, I'm going to go into the next stitch, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets. This is just going to keep it kind of in line with the width of this one, so it just makes it a little bit more snug. Okay, now I'm going to continue on, but just so that I get this out of the way, I'm going to just pull this a wee bit to make it snug, and I'm going to snip this one off. And then what you can do, which is what I like to do, is I will then tie a knot with these 2 together just to kind of give it that little extra security, not too tight because I don't want to compromise the integrity of these stitches. So I knotted those 2 together, and then I will sew in the ends after. Okay, so I just continue on. Oops, there we go. And so now we're going to do 2 single crochets into each stitch. Now, if you were using the same type of yarn, or even just one color, instead of doing the 2 colors like I am, you probably would not have to do this. You would keep it going with just 1 single crochet all the way around, or maybe you started with 2 single crochets and that's the look that you want. Then you can certainly just continue on and keep it all nice and uniform. But because this yarn, even though they call it a size 4, it's quite fine. I myself would call this more of a size 3. But this is how I am making do with it. So it's going to be 2 single crochet stitches into each stitch all the way around until you come back to meeting up with your lighter pink. And I'm in my very last stitch, guys, and there we have it. So I've met back up to the top, and I'm going to just snip my yarn here. And yeah, I'm so happy I did that. See how nicely that just tied everything in? Love it. Now, instead of just doing the usual fasten off, especially because it's in the front, many of you have seen me do the seamless join. So instead of knotting it, I'm going to pull it through, and then I'm going to do, this is actually it's really become one of my favorite ways to kind of end off a row or round, just because I love how seamlessly it looks. So I'm going to insert my yarn needle into the top of that first full stitch there, and I'm going to just pull it gently, not too tightly, through, and then I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to put it through the top, which is the back loop, and then down the back loop there, the bottom back loop, feed it through, and voila, it just looks like another stitch. I love, love, love this join. And you can't really tell. Well, you can tell a little bit there because that's where my slip knot is. But you know what I mean. It just looks seamlessly put together, and I love that. And then I would just continue to sew in my ends there, and you'd be good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and actually do the bottom row as well, the bottom edge. And yeah, I really like that.